is going on, guys? It is Wednesday, 7:30, and it is time. It's time for the Geek Saga. What's Dude, I gotta, you know what? I gotta start doing what Phil does, which is getting all these sound bites. So I can hit that button and be like, it's time, and then just
One day.
One day.
Yeah, but I feel like that's something Phil and Distance Nerding has established. Got to get our own thing.
Exactly.
I know. And I've already forgotten what he had told me last week how to end the show, and I forgot to write it down. So
Fair enough.
I got to watch the show. What's going on, Daniel Knight? Welcome to the show. First time viewer, I'm guessing, because welcome. So guys, welcome to the show. As always, it is the Geek Saga, which is two salty veteran geeks, and one salty vet tech geek with us. We've got the whole vet thing going right here, even though it is.
Sure. Why not?
We need him here to check you out when things go wrong.
As always, I'm your host Eugene with my. I'm gonna save the one joke I've been using the last few shows, and I'm here with David.
Yet.
Thank God.
David and Dennis, the two D's. That's all I'm gonna say.
You're too much, man.
So, David, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while.
Not much, man. I'm just here, getting ready for this big trip I'm about to go on. Be gone for like 8 days straight, and then I'll come back and then pick up an RV that I just bought.
Oh, look at you!
Yeah, not an RV, a trailer.
Wow.
Whatever. Same shit.
All right, whatever. Dennis, what's going on with you?
Not much. At least not much that is new from when we last spoke on Monday.
This is true.
I get up, I go to work, I come home, I rinse and repeat. I avoid getting bit.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, working with Eugene, I have to avoid getting bit too.
I was just gonna say, man, you don't realize just how fine line you're walking, being that close proximity to a savage like him.
All right, whatever. Anyway, so if you guys are wondering about me, I'm doing all right. I hyperextended my elbow though, or my
again.
Arm. Oh, we were doing.
We didn't ask.
Well, I know that's why I had to just say it, so I don't care. No, I was actually doing. We did that riot training and the whole taser and all that stuff. Dude, it was funny as hell. Funny as hell.
Watching these kids go through all that stuff is freaking hilarious, dude.
Oh, dude. Watching them go through all the what do you call it? Because I wasn't there for the tase part, which I should have been. But I was there definitely for what do you call it? The spray, which you get all these kids that are like, oh, it's not gonna be that bad. I'm gonna be able to take it. I eat chilies. I'm Mexican. All this stuff, and then the moment it sprays across your face, oh, it was the funniest thing. It's
like the kid in the preview for that new show. Ow, 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 ow! It hurts. It burns.
Dude, my favorite thing is when they go Super Saiyan. They're just like,
oh my. We had one dude, which everybody was afraid of because this dude is just, he's out there. But he literally, they sprayed him, and he's like, and then all of a sudden they're like, just suck it up. He's like, I was like, what? And then he ran through he was going to the first station, and then he lost it because he was like, with his baton. It was hilarious. It was funny.
I can't laugh. That would probably be me.
Oh, dude, they wanted me to try to go to Inuit school, which is to go become trained to be able to spray and tase and all that stuff. I was like, nah, I'm good.
I did it once. I'm not doing it again.
No.
And I don't want no one slapping me either. Fuck
Yeah,
That
no.
sounds about as fun as doing hand-to-hand training being taught by Steven Seagal.
Well, Gene might like that.
I don't know.
I'm talking
Maybe
about
yes,
Steven
Steven
Seagal
Seagal.
today.
Yeah, he
Maybe
still
Jean
might.
Claude Van Damme. Come on.
He puts himself through some horrible movies. He'd sit there and reminisce with Seagal.
Hey, dude, I love me some good bad movies, so don't even. But
You know,
all right, guys. So really quick, also now that we've got the whole hey, how's everybody doing and everything, let's get that out of the way, and we're gonna move into best way to find us is on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, OnlyFans, where it's David in just a uniform top, nothing underneath, and that's how we get extra cash for this show. But you guys can find us all at the Geek Saga, and if you guys want to message us, if you want to come on the show, if you have any ideas for the show, you can DM us on Instagram at, again, the Geek Saga, or you can actually Gmail us, or email us, email us at thegeeksaga20 at gmail.com. So there you go, guys. It's the best way to get a hold of us. You could also find all, like, we put up the geek news, we put up, like, when I'm in the shack and I'm bored, just like David said, I like to watch those bad movies, and I want to see if you guys can guess what bad movie I'm watching. And I try to put the worst of the worst up on there, so it's really hard to guess. But Dennis has been pretty good about guessing them. So
I've gotten a few. Yeah, a few.
And David just still won't put himself through it. So
I'm not gonna do it, dude. I'll answer the question, and then I'm still not rewatching it though. No, not happening.
I'm telling you, dude, that movie, Never Too Young to Die, cinematic gold.
I don't know, man. Fool's Gold, maybe.
Nah, man. John Stamos, freaking Vanity, and Gene Simmons as a transvestite hermaphrodite.
I don't think so, man.
Greatest movie I've ever watched. That's all I gotta say.
I'm gonna have to hit you with the Al Bundy. I don't think so, Tim. It's not happening.
That's a no for me, dog.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys are missing out. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. But anyways, all right, guys. So because we have a special guest tonight, which is really awesome, and we want to get into our geek news, get that out of the way because you guys also came to listen to some of that geek news, and then we want to get into our special guest, which for me it's a huge honor to have this guy on because fan of his stuff. And before I go into it, just I don't want to gush too much. I think I gushed enough, and it's a little moist in here. Let's just say.
Oh god.
Good night, folks.
Moving into news from gushing.
From gushing to all right, guys.
That is still my favorite bumper.
Hey, we're gonna show. Look at this. We want to show our guests that we are very professional. So I actually got the slides up and running today, and thanks to David, he brought up the stories with this one because I was racking my brains because there's so many things out there, and I was like, okay, what do I narrow it? What do I narrow it down to? And David came up with the X Game Pass Unlimited Subscribers. What is the story, sir?
So for Ultimate subscribers, we've got a couple new things coming up. The one game that seems to be coming up a lot lately is Hi-Fi Rush. They got a bunch of like in-game perks and extra costumes for the main characters and the main cast of the storyline. Phantasy Star Online 2 has a bunch of in-game perks that are be coming out just for this month. Super Animal Royale is coming out with a bunch of in-game cosmetics. I have no clue what that game is, so if you know what it is, comment because I have no clue. And then Battlefield 2042 is giving a field kit that you can use for like I don't know, I guess the missions in the game or whatever. I haven't played Battlefield since it was World War II, so
that was the last time I actually played it too.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, don't. Battlefield 2040. Oh my God, Battlefield 2042 is terrible. It is so buggy. It is so poorly supported right now. It literally seems like it's in its alpha stage. It plays that badly,
which is terrible because like such a long-lasting franchise. You would think the bones are there. Just build on it. Like
about the only thing that they get right is the flight suit. You know, like a little squirrel suit.
Think about this. How many of nowadays, how many companies or franchises or whatever will take what they had before, which is the bare, like you said, the bones, and actually carry it over and improve on that? Instead, they say, we're going to improve on this. We're just going to take the name and everything just out the door.
Well, here's part of the issue when it comes to game development. They want to try and reinvent the wheel because you're not going to maintain a solid fan base if you're literally rehashing the same stuff. And you'll hear people constantly use that when they're talking about games like COD, Call of Duty, you know, Fortnite, a lot of these, you know, either the BRs, the first person shooters, the battle, you know, there's only so much that you can do to keep it fresh and new outside of, like you had mentioned earlier, David, you know, new cosmetics for some of the games, you know, maybe limited time offers for some of the promotional items. Fortnite's a good example of that. They oftentimes are releasing, you know, new skins and stuff alongside whatever new movie is coming out, or if there's a new, you know, some sort of new hot property that's in pop culture at that time. But it's hard to be able to maintain your status as, you know, a top tier AAA game studio when, like you said, those bones are there. Keeping it fresh is not as easy as it seems. Well, that being said, when they take just the name and they apply it to a game that's completely different to anything they've ever done before, what happens? Everybody bitches. Yep. It's not like the old game. Well, make up your minds, guys. So unfortunately, it's kind of a catch-22.
You know what, though? I mean, that point's perfectly, like, you chose the perfect time to bring that up because it leads right into the next bullet, which was
Diablo 4.
And they're having, you know, mass connection issues for people who paid for this ultimate bundle for the early access. And there was a good amount of PS5 players who couldn't even join in. And they're missing a bunch of quality of life things and all these other things that were in Diablo 3 that they just stripped away for Diablo 4. And people are like, why? Like, it was already there.
Unfortunately, I can't sympathize because I'm on Xbox Series X and I've never had an issue getting in from day one.
Whatever, You got an Xbox.
Yeah, I played the beta. I didn't have a problem, and people were having connection issues during the beta as well.
Well, that's to be understandable though, because it's a beta. They're not, you know, the full game isn't available, and they are still tinkering under the hood at that point. But the server slam that they had just last month, I mean, it looked like everything was going to be fine. The servers were, you know, super stable. When the world boss spawned, in my instance alone, there were 30 people. Now we're talking about 30 little Diablo players running around like this, and then the world boss on the screen, and had minimal lag, you know, minimal screen tearing and stuff like that. So it's weird that now that the game is live, they're running into these issues. It's like, what didn't you guys do during that beta period, during that server slam?
Yeah, and then during the beta, it was PC problems, and now it's PS5 problems. So,
well, I mean, PS5 is obviously it's going to be the newer of all of the consoles that they've launched on. So, of course, they're probably going to have problems. But my question to you guys, because now the last time I played Diablo was when it was just Diablo.
That was a long time ago. That was like on a PC.
Yes, it was a long time. Dude, come on. We already discussed this. I'm behind on all my games, and I'm just now almost done with Jedi Fallen Order. I thought I would tap into Squadrons, got bored of that again, and just put that off to the side.
Yeah.
I haven't touched my character on COD in a while, and it's at only like 60 when I'm hearing guys like freaking young Phil from Distance Nerding telling me, oh yeah, so I just like double something, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I still got an M4 that just, I have a red dot.
It's crazy. I'm surprised you're not using iron sights. That's
hey, you know what? If the red dot's available, I'm going to use it.
I guess, but with as little as you played, I'm surprised you have a red dot.
But see, that I've gotten at least that far. So
what's your question?
The question is, can I get into Diablo 4 and not have any issues of just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Or is it very, very like still pretty easy to get into? And
I think you can pick it up and play. I mean, I never played any of the Diablo games.
You can pick up and play. Yeah, you don't need to know any of the lore or the backstory for the game to be able to start playing. Absolutely. No.
Yeah, the areas are different. There's very few spots where there's overlap from Diablo 3.
Yeah.
But I jumped into Diablo 3 never playing any Diablo games, and I just took off running.
Yeah, same.
Which I think, David, you told me that I can actually jump onto those games, right? Because isn't it? Or was
I think it's on the Switch too.
Yeah,
that's how I played in when we were in Cuba. I jumped on the Switch when I wasn't playing Destiny 2 over there.
Yeah, you told me that, and I was like, oh yeah, I should jump on that, and I never did.
Yeah.
I was busy fishing or actually building those different costumes that I had out there.
Yeah.
So I was doing other things while I was out there. So, all right, guys. So yeah, so Diablo 4 still having major issues. And Dennis, you're right. I mean, you would think that by this time they've already gone through the beta phase, that they could have fixed some of those issues. But
well, the last thing to say on that, I mean, no video game being released is going to be without its issues, because even during that beta phase, they, like I said, the full game was not available. They really couldn't have the full player base, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, all at the same time at various points in the game itself. I'm already seeing people in the game who have completed the entire campaign, have unlocked the higher tier difficulties and are now doing like dungeons and things like that. They're well into their ranks are well into the hundreds already, and this game is less than a week out. So yeah, they're gonna run into some problems. It's to be expected, but at the same time, it's I mean, Blizzard should never have quite this much trouble.
You know what though? I see a trend in gaming, and it started with Cyberpunk, and it just continued from there. Like, games have just consistently had issues on launch, whether it be beta or early access issues or anything. But you had Cyberpunk, we had Pokemon Violet and Scarlet had massive issues when it first dropped. Now Diablo 4 is having issues. Like, I don't see it going away. I think the bigger the games get, the more problems we're going to have. And then file sizes aren't going to get any smaller. You know what I mean? Player bases aren't getting smaller, and the graphics are being pushed even more. So we're going to just keep getting more and more issues. So I think it's just a thing we got to get used to, and just hope that by the time we jump into those games, it's all smoothed over and everything's good. Just like when I played Cyberpunk, year and a half later, it was perfectly fine.
Then I guess I'm going to wait for Diablo in a year and a half. Well, by the time I'm done with all the other games, that's probably how long it's going to be. So,
well, here's the other thing to just kind of put the fine point on it. We, as the player base, are also part of the problem, because we're putting out all kinds of pressure on the developer to give us our game, give us our game, give us our game. Where do you draw the line? You want your game now, but you want it to be perfect. Well, perfection takes time. So does the developer make us wait years for the game to come out? Or do they give us something now and hope it's playable enough that they can get a dedicated base and then start fixing the problems that show up once the game is being played? Again, I feel like it's a catch-22.
All right, guys.
Yep.
Well, that is it with our 2 stories for tonight. Normally we go a couple more, but like I said, we got to guess. We don't want to keep him waiting too long. So,
Right.
any final short thoughts, quick thoughts? Boom, you guys.
I'm under 5'5". Every thought is short. So
Yeah.
No, by all means, if you can get in Diablo 4, lots of fun.
yeah, it's a great game, dude. I played the beta. I had a great time.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it right now. I said it last week. The new season of Destiny 2, a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. So, if you're a Destiny 2 player, be out there.
Sweet. Well, that is it for. All right, guys. So we are going to be bringing in our guest, and this is a man that I was seriously stoked to get a message right away from him saying, "Sure, I'll come on the show." I was like, "Okay, awesome," because we are still a small show, but we have fun doing this show. So it's really awesome to have somebody that of this caliber. We did have somebody that was in the industry before, which we talked to, which was Dennis's brother, and he did some pretty awesome movies that I watched, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I seen that movie and that movie." He's all like, "You did?" I was like, "Yeah, I did," and I had fun watching them. So, but now with our guest that's coming on, he has a long list of things he's worked on. He's been in the industry for quite a while. I believe I saw it for 27 years. And we're just really excited to have him on. So, you know what? Enough of me talking. Let's talk to Mr. Robinson and bring in our guests.
Who could that be? Let's see. This is how you answer a door in
Geek Saga.
Who is it? Come on!
Hey guys.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the show, Evil Ted Smith of the Evil Ted channel. What's going on, Ted?
Really good. Really quickly. We're not live with the general
we're
audience.
live.
We are live.
So people can chat and ask questions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Because I was directing people, I kept thinking, is this being recorded? So I know, just double checking. I'm sorry. Guys, hello everybody. Hi, I'm Evil Ted. How you doing?
All right, and we got your first person that's chiming in there.
Who is Evil Ted? I've been so many of his Twitch streams in the past. Oh, it's Danny Knight. I know Danny Knight. How you doing, man? Welcome back. Welcome to the YouTube live stream here over at Geek Saga. Okay, guys, really quickly, to answer your question, I've been in the industry almost over 30 years.
30 years, okay.
Yeah, I started when I was 1989. I was about 24, 25. Wow. I was a kid. I moved out to California and hit the ground running. I came out in the early days of the 90s when it was still almost a little residual from the 80s when they had like the straight to video market. So there was just so much work when I came out at the time. Like people would write to me, "Hey Ted, what can I do to work in the industry?" So I can tell you what I did in the 90s. Like it's so different now. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that's where I got started.
Well, I mean, your list of projects that I'm looking at what's on your website, because I've also gone to your website. I've tried finding everything I can, and the one that actually piqued the interest of my good friend there, David, is Guyver.
Yeah,
he was like, "Oh, really?" So that was something he was like, "Oh, I'm in. Yeah, bring him on the show. Let's talk to him."
Do this.
Well, the thing with the Guyver was a big turning point for me in my career because when I came out here, I met some guys. I worked on Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. It came and left. It was a TV series, and of course they made a movie.
Oh yeah,
it was a great TV series. I loved it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the movie had different segments of it. I always worked on the Gargoyle episode, and this was back in the days when it was more sort of CG. So all the shots of New York, and look, there's a shot of the movie where the camera comes inside this guy's studio apartment, and they're in New York, and they look through the window, like over the glass ceiling window. It's all done visual effects. It's all miniatures. We built the miniatures, and there was a screen behind it. And they're projecting the image underneath on the glass. It was a big motion control shot. And so there's a guy sculpting gargoyles for the movie. It was Steve Wang. For you guys out there, Steve Wang's this huge makeup artist. So we became friends. And Steve did like the Predator monster. He did the Gill Man from Monster Squad. And so he's recognized a phenomenal artist. So he was making a low budget film. And I came on board to help him. I just like we totally hit it off. And so he made this low budget movie called Kung Fu Rascals. We became friends. And then he and Screaming Mad George got the rights and got funding to do Guyver the movie, and I was there for Ground Zero, so I was able to be part of the show. I was originally my big claim to fame was I got to build and design the Guyver unit. So the Guyver unit you see in the movie was my design. I built it. Steve built the suits. So I kind of modeled after him. And there's a gag where it opens up. I did all that, and I played not one but two monsters in the movie.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I played Stryker, the big lizard by J.J. Walker. I played his monster counterpart. So I was the creature. And for all you kids out there, if you guys want to see all this stuff, you go to eviltedsmith.com and have my website. There's all the pictures I posted. There's a folder called Monsters I Played. If you go to that, you can see all the pictures. But anyway, and I played that monster. And at the very end of the scene, Mark Hamill in the movie played this character called Bax, and he transforms into a monster, and I played the monster. I was in that costume forever, but we had this whole big thing planned, like this big fight scene, and like any low budget movie, we just ran out of time. So it's like I transform and then I die. Like it was.
Yeah, I think it's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes of on-screen time as him as a creature, and then he's dying on scene, and then he just kind of like
because we just ran. Oh, there it is. There's Stryker, MC Stryker. That's it.
Yep.
That was and so I did that, and that just kind of launched me. By doing that film with him, I met so many amazing visual effects people. Oh my god, that was from a video game. I was back in the days when CD-ROM came out. CD-ROM games, and everybody thought it was going to be the next big wave, and they just tanked so fast. And so this was a test for a CD-ROM game called Monster Mash. And the concept of the game is that you're a giant robot and you're a pilot and you're fighting the giant. And as you're playing the game, there's a scientist in a Jeep driving around trying to give you instructions on how to operate the robot as you're fighting. So I played the monster, and it was me in a costume, and they hit me to a building and set pyro, and I was engulfed in flames.
Oh, wow.
And luckily, I didn't burn, but it's a great shot.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I looked over the list of stuff that you've done, and I have to say,
yep, he's gone. He left.
You know what happened? He did what I do. He clicked the wrong switch. It happens all the time.
He probably did. Yeah.
He'll be right back. Yes.
There we go. Sorry, I hit my stupid mouse, and Dennis will attest to that. I hate this mouse now.
He probably hit the wrong button.
I did. There's a side button on here. So
your question.
So the list of stuff that you have here, and this is why David always says you watch pretty much everything. I have watched every single movie that is on your list. There is not one thing that I have missed.
Oh my goodness. Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah. And that's why when I were able to get you on the show, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Because even with your TV shows, Xena obviously was a huge thing because when I was younger, she was hot. She still is.
She still is. She looks amazing. Yeah.
Then VR Troopers, of course, was a show that was coming on when we would get home from school. The Arrested Development, I still watch that to this day. And my wife was impressed that she's like, oh my God, he worked on Arrested Development? I said, yes. Walking Dead, which is ultimately one of my favorite shows. And I can go on and on about all this stuff that's on here, but I've literally watched everything that's on here. And
well, I can tell you, on Xena, I had a little bit more involvement on Xena because I worked at a company called K&B Effects Group, and they built this giant monster, and I had to go outside. I had to go to New Zealand to babysit it, and my job was to adjust the actor, get him in and out of the suit, make sure everything was working, and so I was on set, and I was really impressed on how fast they shot that show because it was a television schedule. And I met Lucy Lawless. That was a blast to meet her on that show. And I was out there for almost about 3 months on that production. So that was a bigger involvement on that show. And but on the stuff like Walking Dead and Rest Development, I was at a prop house. So my job is I sat at a desk, and they would just come in every day and go, "Oh, we need this, buy this, and this." And so half the time I'd make something, I didn't even know what it was for. And for Arrested Development, it was a TV show, and they shoot things fast. A cinder block. There's a big gag where a cinder block falls and hits one of the guys in the head, and they're like, the shop I was working at had this mold, and it was rotting, it was falling apart. Like, oh my God, we need this cinder block by tomorrow. I was like, I can fabricate that out of foam. They're like,
Right.
what? And so I did. I fabricated a cinder block. I think it's on my website too, on props I made. I think foam props. But yeah, I ended up doing it in a day. I got sheet foam, I cut it, I glued it, and we covered it with rubber latex and painted it, and literally did it in 24 hours. I did it I had an 8-hour day. So we did it. It was a one-day wonder. And so I would do stuff like that. We did Alias, the TV show, Malcolm in the Middle. We did so much stuff, just crazy, weird things. The turnaround was insane. It was just so fast all the time. We had like a day or 2 days to make something all the time. It's crazy.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the foam props that you made, but I mean, well, honestly, I've looked at all your stuff that you've built on your Instagram. Again, I'm the one that's fanboying out here, and Dennis, he knows how. When I start to get fanboyish, it's like sometimes I'll just go off and I lose my train of thought. But
is there anything particular of all the shows and everything you guys have seen? Is there something that stands out or something out of those films? Anything you guys wanted to know? Or
so I wanted to know. Actually, my daughter asked me if on The Walking Dead,
yes,
it mentioned that they used your technique on making the swords, the machetes, the axes. Did you work on like Michonne swords and on the axe, which Rick used?
No. Here's the thing: my biggest claim to fame for Walking Dead was we had to do the swords. They got the swords, and we had several swords. We had aluminum, so we had two lightweight aluminums, and then we had real ones. I don't know why they needed one, but we had metal ones and we had aluminum ones. And usually we mold and cast them, but my boss was like, "No, I want every handle wrapped with white leather." So I had to mimic the Japanese like the wrapping on the handles. So we did these.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. So we had to strip them all down, and I basically, by the time I got to the third one, I got it down pretty well. But I was wrapping these handles with the white leather. And the cool thing about the show was that we made half swords, and the swords were basically a handle with half a blade, and the blade only went out so far. And what they did, this is the early days. Well, we've come along such a far way from the time that show. People don't realize Walking Dead now, it's an old show.
Yeah.
But they were still the digital thing was happening pretty fast, and they're catching up with it. So they would have Michonne take guys' heads off in camera in one shot. These guys would walk up, and she'd take her sword and go whoosh, whoosh. And what it was, she had the half sword. And so she was taking the half sword and swinging it in front of the actors, and the guys in post could take that blade and build the rest digitally. So the blade could go through the neck, and they would digitally grab the guys' heads with the actors, and they would just act like their heads are coming off. And
Right.
they would in post take the heads and lift them off their bodies and make them look like they're falling. And they would do it on post. They would just go in and do it. And if you watch the show, it's beautiful. It's like whack. It looks seamless. And it's groundbreaking. Like because I come from the old school DFX. If somebody's getting their head cut off, you have to cut in for a close up. You got the guy's hands. You got a fake puppet head thing, and the head comes off, and you do a close up. Then you go to a wide shot. The guy's got his head hid, and he drops to the ground really quick, and it completes the gag. You do it in a series of shots. Now, Walking Dead, it's like television. She just goes whack. The guy's walking. Next thing you know, his head's gone, and then he drops and hits the ground. The shots are short because if you stay on too long, it's more work. So the effect still works, but it's again that was back then, and they were mastering this technology. So we're like now you're watching stuff like Mando and stuff. It's just like it's what they can do now digitally. It's just groundbreaking. and it has changed the industry drastically.
Oh yeah.
But that was my big thing. It was kind of fun to work on that and to realize how they did it, what we were doing, and so we gave them practical props to actually complete this gag that we're doing.
That's pretty awesome. That is awesome. So before we actually came on camera, we were talking, or actually on to start of the show, we were talking about how back in the day, the whole, when you grew up,
Yes,
there wasn't what we have now as far as the conventions, all that stuff. So what was the big show for you that actually got you into wanting to do this stuff, and what basically solidified that you truly are a geek like the rest of us?
I think was a kid, I loved everything sci-fi growing up. Here's the thing, I date myself on, because when I was growing up, and I held this title for a long time, all the way into my 20s and my early 30s, you name anything sci-fi, I've seen it. We're talking Japanese, Soviet movies, whatever you make, anything sci-fi was my quest to see it. Because people don't realize this, guys. I'm gonna tell all you kids out there, sci-fi was a very small genre. It was films out there, but it wasn't the abundance it is now. So as a kid growing up from the 60s and 70s and the 80s, anything sci-fi came out, we jumped on board. And even though it was bad, we were kind of like, well, you watched it anyway because it was the only thing you could get. I was moved by Day the Earth Stood Still when I was a kid. I saw that movie that blew me away. I love that one a lot, and then I love Forbidden Planet, which was the original. You get any kids out there, you guys? That was it was shot in color, and that was in the 50s. And at that time, it was such a gamble because they were spending $1 million on one movie, and that was Forbidden Planet, and it was a big deal. And they're like, "Oh my God, we're spending $1 million." It was a huge success when it came out too. But yeah, those movies kind of got me excited. But I was very, very young, and there wasn't much I could do about it, but except watch them and love them. But it was the turning point. I was 14 years old in 1977. Star Wars came out, and like, again, for youngsters out there, when that movie came out, we saw something on screen we'd never seen before, because there was effects, but nothing to that level. And George Lucas wanted stuff that didn't exist. So he created his own effects company called ILM. So when we all went to the theater in 1977, and we sat there was a giant spaceship that flew over our heads, and we lost our minds. It's like, holy crap, you couldn't comprehend how you, like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And you just see this stuff and shoots and guys and lasers, and it was like fun and action-packed, and it was swashbuckling like Buck Rogers. And so, yeah, it changed my life. And so that's when I realized I want to make stuff. And there was no YouTube channel or books. So I was in the Midwest, and I would like, how they make this stuff? They just make it. That was always people's, I don't know, they just make it. Like, that's
Yeah.
Thanks. In other words, you have no idea what you're talking about. Just say that.
Yeah.
How about you say, I don't know? How about that? Just say that.
No.
So,
You can't say that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Ted. So your first build was Darth Vader, right?
It was, yeah. I built stuff prior. I built like spaceships and things. But then when I saw Darth Vader, I'm like, I wanted to like, and I never forget when I was a kid, I was so frustrated because I made his face out of cardboard and because his face was very geometrical. But when I got to the helmet, it was paper mache. And no matter how good you are at paper mache, it's never smooth. It drove me nuts. I would always, and my parents were all wild by it. I was like, it's not smooth. It doesn't look right. And you just kept striving to do stuff and making things. And I would just find, and so I did what most prop makers did in the 70s and 80s. I would just find stuff and fabricate them together. And of course, when Star Wars came out, every water gun got spray painted black. Everything was black.
Of course.
Black with dry brush silver paint. Every gun, like if you do that now, you get shot. But when, when I was a kid, that's all we did. We'd get toy guns and stick stuff on them and spray paint them black. But yeah, that was a movie that kind of woke me up. But again, there was no. We all got made fun of. I was a big sci-fi fan. I loved Star Trek as a kid. Grew up with 70s television. We had Space 1999 and Star Trek and all the stuff we watched. But then Star Wars was the whole dirty sci-fi. the dirty spaceships and the waste and the
It
kind of
looked-
ground. Yeah,
It
yeah,
looked lived.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was
it was gritty and yeah.
yeah, and
absolutely.
that was the big groundbreaker. George Lucas was the first one to do that, and so everything prior to sci-fi was always pristine and clean, like 2001, Space 1999, Star Trek, even Logan's
Buck
Run.
Rogers.
Yeah, Buck Rogers, Logan's Run,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and it was so funny. Even Buck Rogers was was a cash cow because Star Wars came out, so everybody's like, oh, we got to jump on, and Battlestar Galactica.
Oh,
was
God,
all-
I love that
everybody,
show.
it was a cat. It was everybody tried to. It went from nobody wanted to make a sci-fi film, and after Star Wars came out, then everything was just
Last
bombarded.
Starfighter.
Yeah. Oh, just tons of garbage. But my favorite, my guilty favorite Star Wars ripoffs, if you guys are out to write these ones down, is Star Crash with Stella Star. It's
Love that movie.
That's an Italian. It's such a great movie. It's so bad and good at the same time.
It is horrible. David Hasselhoff.
And then another favorite one is Message from Space. That was the Japanese answer to Star Wars, and that's basically Seven Samurai. It was a remake of Seven Samurai.
Oh, I gotta look that up.
Yeah, Message from Space. These aliens are being overtaken by this evil empire, so they make these magical walnuts. They throw them out into space to find these warriors that draws them together. Yeah, it's so wacky. But the production value and these costumes and the stage present and all these models on wires in unison flying through space. It's just, it's amazing. You guys gotta see it. Message from Space. Another great one.
I just found it. I'm gonna annoy my wife tonight, and I'm going to watch it. It's on Tubi for free.
Oh, dude.
You guys,
I just pulled it up too.
Yeah.
Strap it up, guys. Strap in. It's so good. You are not going to be disappointed.
So a good friend of ours is in the chat right now, Lupe. He shouted out Ice Pirates, which I have to admit.
Here's the again, Ice Pirates is just I love the concept of it, but it's just bad. It's like I understand what they're trying to do, but even when I was a kid in the theater, like going, can we just stop talking and start fighting or going to space? It's a big snooze fest for as much as they put into it and have a great cast. There's a great cast in it and great stuff. It suffers low budget. They shoot in parking lots. You can tell it's really cheap. Some people
watch over and over.
I have to say no to Ice Pirates. Sorry, guys.
When I was a kid, it would play a lot on over here. It was Channel 5 KTLA.
Oh yeah,
anytime it came on, I was watching it.
Yeah. Things that pull you in, but don't forget space herpes and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Did not forget about space herpes.
It's funny hearing you talk about that Darth Vader mask and how it was never perfect, but then you look at the old casts of the original and it's completely like lopsided and none of the sides are matching up.
What's different is because back in the days when we were working, everything's digital now. So when I worked at the prop house, they were super anal about everything being precise and super clean and whatnot. And but the other thing too is that you could get away with murder because it was shown on film. You could get away with murder with film, and digital changed everything. And RoboCop, I worked at a shop called Precision Effects, and they were making RoboCop 2 at the time, and I was working out here, and we had a possibility because they were doing this thing, RoboCop, and Botine was slammed at the shop because they're making RoboCop, and they need a bunch of stunt suits because there'd be more stunts in this new. They had more money, more stunts, so they need stunt suits. So the suits were shipped to the shop for us to look at because they want us to clean them up and remold them and make like 5 suits or something like that. And my boss at the time was like, Mike, and he looked at me and he said, look, he goes, I normally would jump all over this just so I could have a mold so I could cast one for myself down the road. But he said that the turnaround time they wanted so fast for these suits, he just knew it was not possible. He's like, we can't do it. And we're like, oh, so we had to pack them back up. And I'll tell you one thing, when I saw these suits, this was the original RoboCop suit. And you look at it up close, it had tool marks and rake marks from when they were sculpting it in clay. Oh. It's like, and there's the fins on the bottom, the ribs are all uneven. Nothing's symmetrical. It's all jacked, but you don't see it when you watch the movie. He looks amazing. And that's one thing about it. You were able to get away with that stuff. you look at it when I saw it up close. I'm like, wow, this was shot on film, and it became an iconic costume. And it's that whole thing. You couldn't use that costume on digital by today's standards. So
Yeah.
it's a lot the old days of just getting things away. Yeah, it's like things were more forgiving back then.
Yeah.
So Ted, you lived. Where did you grow up again? It was in
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis.
Yeah, I grew
Oh
in the Midwest.
God, Missouri.
Yeah.
Oh.
You ready for this, guys? Highest crime city. I saw we got number one. Yeah.
Well, for me and David, it brings when we hear Missouri, it brings very painful
Memories, yeah.
You guys, what you guys were stationed out there?
We went to
in
basic
Portland.
training and
Yeah.
AIT out there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're both MPs by trade. Yeah, it was. It's funny because I grew up a Rams fan, and by the time I got to basic, they were in St. Louis already. And I was like, oh, I'll go catch a game. I found out how far away it was, and I was like, yeah, never mind, that's too far. I'm gonna get caught up by the drill sergeants. I'm gonna get destroyed.
Well, like I tell people, at the time when I was a kid growing up, it was a great place to be raised. I liked growing up there, but so if you want to do or grow or change, not just St. Louis, but anywhere where you're from, is if you want to get out of the rut or do something, you got to move or go where the action is or go. And for me, when I came out to LA, it was my whole purpose was to come out and work in the entertainment industry. I always tell people, don't move. I'm the first one to tell you this. Don't move to LA unless you want to work in the industry, because there's no other reason to live here. It's overpriced. It's parking's horrible. Traffic's horrible. It's not the place to live. Don't get me wrong. I'm glutton for punishment. I love it here, but I've been here and I don't know. I know my way around how to manipulate my way through this beast. But it takes years living here to understand that. But yeah, I don't recommend it to everybody. It's not for everybody. But
see, I grew up in a small town in Central California, and it was just surrounded by farmlands and stuff like that. So I had to do the same thing. I had to move to San Diego to get away from home, like go to school, do my art thing.
Right.
And then pandemic forced us back. So I'm back in Fresno now, but it's like, yeah, I miss living in Southern California. I miss the big cities. I don't really partake to being home anymore.
Understandable.
So for you,
yes, sir.
Moving out of St. Louis, you came over here to LA. What was the very first project that you actually got in on?
Miracle Landing with Connie Selica. It was a made-for-TV movie.
That was a name. Wow.
Yeah. Well, dude, she was. I mean, I think she was still kind of pulling a draw there at the time. Yeah. She was kind of coming down from that peak, but we made this. It turned out it's a true story about the Aloha tragedy. It was about, a lot of you people don't know this. There was American Aloha Airlines that were flying, and there was a crack in the fuselage of the airplane, and the entire top of the plane peeled open like a banana skin. Just went, and it had one casualty. It was a flight attendant, and she went. She was gone. Everybody else was seat belted, and the pilot did a nosedive that dropped the altitude, so there was oxygen because all the oxygen masks were gone, and there was no air. So he did emergency descent, leveled out, and the plane was twisting like this while he was flying because there's no stability in it, and he landed the plane, and everybody survived.
Jeez.
But anyway, so they made for TV movie about that. So I was part of the visual effects crew, and I was one of the model makers, and we came on board and built all this. We built these giant miniatures of the airplane fuselage, and we shot the stuff in high speed, and we had it rip open, and we shot it on a thing so they could rear screen projection it, so the actors could be in chairs and you could see it happening. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And that was one of my first things, and I learned so much. That was my first. That was one job of many, but that was what got me started.
That's crazy. So, sorry, Ghost, great stuff. So you went to that, and then you moved into, what was your next project? Because I mean, let's hear the story of Ted.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can kind of condense it because it goes on for a long time. But what it was is that I got into miniature making. What happened was I came out here with the illusion that I was going to be a makeup artist. I'm like, I loved monster movies. I loved American Werewolf in London.
Oh yeah.
I loved Rick Baker. I got all the Cinefex magazines that I read about Rick Baker. I learned a lot about them through the magazine called Starlog and famous
Starlog.
monsters. Yeah, famous monsters of Filmland and
Fangoria.
yeah, all Fangoria and stuff. So I was eating that stuff up. So I had all these books and Alien and all this stuff. And so when it came to California, I'm like, well, the Miracle of Anything was a model job. Like, well, I could do models. It's like I grew up as a kid making models, so I understood the concept. And so I got schooled in model. I learned a little bit more about it. I started model making, so I started wanting to get into makeup. So I hooked up with Steve Wang, and when he did the Guyver, which was nothing but makeup, it was makeup and monsters, and I was working on it, but I was still young, an apprentice, so I was kind of in the shop. And here's a story for you: I worked for Screaming Red George and had a big shop. And I would just do jobs they had signed me to, and I was just kind of learning as I was going. I was getting paid $50 a day.
What?
That was my rate.
Jeez.
But you know what's so funny about it? I was a kid in the valley. My apartment was like $450.
Oh my gosh.
And at $50, I was like, and I lived on like ramen and noodles and mac and cheese, and I was able to. I look back on that. It was just me. I was surviving. So, and I loved it. And eventually, I'm like, okay. So, as we were working on the movie, Steve liked me. I worked when we did Kung Fu Rascals. His movie, I played multiple characters. I played a lot of monsters, and he really liked the way I projected, how I moved or acted in these monster suits. So when I got on Guyver, they cast me to play Stryker. So J.J. Walker was an actor, but he was a Zonoid. For all you fans out there, Zonoids are guys that turn into monsters like a werewolf, So J.J. would turn into a monster, and that's when I would take over. And it was a blast because I was just in this crazy giant lizard costume, and I was overacting and moving around and doing and just try to embody J.J. Walker with his walk and being, and it was a big hit. And so when the movie came out, Fangoria wrote an article and gave J.J. Walker a great nod at how great he was in the monster suit.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. Like, how was that dude in the suit? Like, there's no way he was already a little bit older at the time.
And people were like, "Oh yeah." And so I thought so funny because I got screwed over from the credits of that movie. It was a whole acting union thing. I got kind of screwed out of it. But the whole point was over now with social media and over the years, I could post about it and talk about it. And that's when people are like, "What? That was you?" So it's So it was fun, but so the long story short was I was working in the shop and I was next to this kid named Eddie Yang. Eddie Yang's a real an accomplished makeup artist now. And I was working with him. He made the character Lisker, the big rhino looking guy with a big ram head. That was Lisker. And Eddie Yang was 17 years old. And I'm working next to Eddie Yang. And he grabs some clay and he goes, and he starts throwing clay on this head cast, right? And by time lunchtime comes around, he had the thing blocked out. He had it blocked out. And when I looked at it, I said, dude, that would take me a week. And he did it in hours.
Wow.
And he stands there and he goes, oh, yeah, I'm just going to let that set up. I'm going to go back and add details later. I'm like, oh. And I realized I'm way out of my league. It's like.
He did that with real clay. I can barely do it in ZBrush.
And it humbled me too, because I realized as much as I had like wanted to do something that's out. But as I was working around these guys, the one thing I was good at was fabricating, and like the Guyver unit thing. Like I was more of a model maker, and I had ideas of how to make the things open and close, and Steve's like, yeah, do that. And so everybody else in the shop couldn't really put their head around it, but I could. So that's what I kind of found. I was more of a builder and fabricator and stuff. So I was kind of got away from sculpting, got more into like miniatures, and then later became costumes, and then went from costumes to props. So I changed my career 3 times. Started off as visual effects, doing miniatures, went from miniatures to suits and creatures and making suits, and then fell into miniature and then doing props. So it's about the first 5, 6, 7 years, and then changed gears, and then was a model maker for like 15 years, and spent the last like 30 or like 20 like doing props. So I'm pretty multifaceted in most of that stuff.
So what got you into doing your actual YouTube channel? Because I saw that, and I obviously, that's what I got first hooked on. And then I saw that there was a huge gap between your first, I think it was like few episodes, and then the next post.
Yeah. What happened was I was working at the prop house, and I was there for like what I felt like I literally thought I was there for 5 years, and then when I left the shop, it turned out I was there for 15.
Oh, jeez.
I spent
I've had a couple of jobs like that.
right.
It's a good time.
Jeez, and it really freaked me out. I was like, "Holy cow!" Because that place again. When I talk about this place, this is most every shop you work at. It's a factory, and you have to work quickly, and so it was just neck breaking pace. And it went from when I first started there, we had like a week or two, we usually had like a month to build something, and it turned to weeks, and then by the time I left, it was days. Just the industry and everything kept everything the prices got higher. Everything they want to pay us less. They want everything faster. So by the time I left, it was just the level of speed. I was done. I was burned out. And so my buddy Chuck one day, who's was my shop foreman at the time, and Chuck was kind of like, we became friends because I woke up and had coffee with this guy every day for 15 years, and we were friends. And he came in one day and said, "I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to take my wife and we're going to go back home, to Philadelphia. I'm getting out of here." And I looked at him and went, "Oh my God, if he leaves, I'm leaving," because he was the one that kept me, on track and kept me away from my bosses. Dealing with those guys is kind of a pain. So he's like, he was my mediator between those guys. And if he left, then I have to deal with them directly. I don't want to do that. So when Chuck gave his final notice, literally the next day I came in and said, I'm going too. So I left. And that was the time when the YouTube thing was kind of starting off. And I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this opportunity and dedicate my time to YouTube full time. And I did. And I started like in 2014, I think, or something like that when I started. And I did it pretty steadily as 9 years, almost 9 years straight as a career. I did that YouTube. I went to conventions. I ran it. It was doing really great. Then COVID came, derailed everything. And then Putin's war started. And then everything doubled the prices. And so now I'm at the point where I still have my YouTube channel. And I'll tell you guys out there, thank you so much for watching my channel and subscribing. Be patient with me. I am coming back. Leveling back up. I had to go back to work for a little bit of a while and go back into movie industry stuff. So I'm doing movie work a little bit on the side. Because what happens when I do movie work, it takes all my time. Like they work you hard and long, so I don't have any time. So now I'm getting back in the groove of getting back to my YouTube channel. So I just got my my space helmet video, which I've been waiting to do for a long time. That video is up, and I got a new one coming up, and I got a bolter pistol from Warhammer I'm working on next. So I have videos coming. Be patient.
I can't wait for that. I've recently started kind of dabbling in Warhammer and man,
it's fun stuff.
So I had a quick question. I know we talked a lot about Guyver, and but you worked on The Fifth Element too. And what were your like keynotes on that?
Oh my gosh,
I love that movie.
That film was a roller coaster because when we got that job, Luc Besson was shooting it in France, and he wanted to do it, but he wanted to do everything in France. In England. He's doing it in the UK. It was overseas production. He goes, "I want to do everything here," and then the visual effects guys, but our shops are here in LA. We're gonna do everything out here. So, but they're like, okay, so we got it, and when we got the show, they were shooting in England, and we were doing all the miniatures, and we had great production designs and drawings and artwork and stuff. But I was on board with the flying cab, so I was part of the crew of the flying cab, and we had pictures of blueprints of the cab, and we're looking at the model, like they're looking at shots. We had some images from the movie, and we actually had the blueprints, and we're looking at the blueprints, looking at the model, and go, this doesn't look right. They look kind of different. Like, so we call the guys in England. They're like, "Hey, what's up?" They go, "Oh yeah, we didn't really follow the blueprints. We just kind of made it organically." And we're like, "Oh great, okay." So we're like, "We have to build this thing. It has to match verbatim. It has to look exactly." So my boss, Leslie Eckert, gets on a plane, flies to London, and he makes this big yardstick with a grid on it, meaning it's just black and white with dots and lines. It was to represent inches and feet. And we went to the full size cab, and he would place it and photograph it, all these different angles. And man, when he came back, he had these beautiful photographs of the full-size cab. And being a model maker, he knew what he was doing. So he knew all the angles that we needed. So we literally built from the photographs. We had a general idea of the length, but we actually built from the photographs. And so my favorite shots in that movie is when Corbin Dallas pulls out of the garage and he opens the garage. So you see him get in the cab and all that stuff. That's all full size. And as soon as you see the cab hovering, any shot where you see the whole cab hovering, it's the model. And the cab starts to push out and somebody runs and he kind of hits the brake lights on his back. The car goes, ooh, it hurts. That's our model. And we're on top of it. You see it in 70 millimeter on the screen. And it was so beautiful because I was sitting there like, oh my God, it looks so much like it. So every time you saw the model floating or independently floating around, it was always the model. And so for the few shots we see the actors was the full size one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome because that's like one of my favorite shots of the whole movie is like that whole taxi scene at the beginning. And the chick falls through. I mean, Mila Jovovich, right? She falls through the ceiling and, Lilo Dallas multipass, like hilarious.
There's a quick shot in the film because we had this. Here's the so we had to work so quickly. These models were painted and completed, and this is the old days where you always had to have different mounts for the car. So the mount for the cab when it's flying forward, you had a mount in the back, and then when it's flying, you had a mount for the side. You had a mount when you took it. So the cab, when it goes out the garage, like there was no place to hide the mount. They cut it was like there's a license. He has a slight indentation of his license plate on the cab, and so that's where I cut out the hole for the mat. And I had to make a little patch up and make a little Bondo thing around it, so it fit in perfectly. And the only way you could get it in was using a piece of tape, because when it snapped in, you couldn't grab it to get it out. So you had to take a piece of tape and fold it in half and grab it and pull it out with a piece of tape, because you couldn't get it out otherwise. But in the movie, when he pulls forward, that was always made me nervous because you're going to see the seam line, and you didn't. It was perfect. But in the shot where she falls and goes through it, we had to make a hole. So these models are done, and he's like, Ted, we got to cut a hole in the cab and make it to where it's a hole. It's got to look like folded metal, but it can't move because it's a model.
Right.
So like, oh crap. So I had to cut a hole in it, and I took black wrap foil and shaped it and then put clay behind it and made a silicone mold of that so I could reproduce the torn hole. And I had to do 2 cabs like that. So I had to cut it and patch it. And the guys, I would do it, finish it. And the guys would come in and paint it. And my friend at the time, Brian Ripley, made a Barbie doll, and he painted her up like Lulu Dallas and put her in the cab. So the only shot in the film where you actually see it is an overhead shot where Corbin Dallas is there and she falls in the cab and the cops surround him.
Right.
And it's a big overhead shot of and you see the cab and the cops surrounding him before he punches and goes down. So it's a quick shot. And if you freeze the DVD, you can see you can look in the little, and you can see maybe a little bit of her. So
that's cool.
Because they're like, we might see in there. We might. So Brian made this, took a Barbie doll and bent her up and painted her like Lilo and stuck her in there. It's funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's funny.
I need to interject real quick, Ted. I apologize. I am unfortunately going to have to step out a little bit early, but I did have one question for you. Talking a bit about your early days in the industry and the things you've been working on more recently. Practical versus CGI. What are your thoughts?
It's a double-edged sword because it's like I always tell people, it's a great tool. It's like a hammer, but you can't do everything with a hammer.
Right.
So, and it's I think CG is grown so much. The stuff where digital is the best, I think, is the most groundbreaking stuff. Like when you watch Mando or the new, what's that new Andor series?
Yeah.
When these guys walk out on location, there's a spaceship behind them. It looks like it's there, and we all know it's not there, but it looks so like they build a section of it, and then everything else they do in post. But it's so groundbreaking. When it gets to organic stuff and people, it's still, the only person able to pull that off is James Cameron for the Avatar movies. I mean, that's the level of like motion, like. But anything with actors or monsters, like we always can spot it. It's like you always can spot it. But
of course.
But when it's just, I think digital is so great for building landscapes and buildings and green screens, like having the actors at some place and then going beyond that and not being a matte painting, because now you can do a digital matte painting and the camera can move and tilt and move, and like they have all this freedom now. That's why I think digital is really amazing. And also digital literally obliterated model making. People like going, people are like, oh, it'll come back. And the answer is this: it's no.
Yeah, I mean,
it is not coming back, people. It's not.
Yeah, no, the perfect example of that was Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was probably like the most obvious, because Rick Baker was working on the physical, actual dinosaur, and this was actually something. My older brother, as Eugene mentioned, he did work in the industry for a period of time, and he was on it for the project, and these guys came over to his workshop and said, "Hey, we need a couple of extra pairs of hands over here. Can you come over?" And they walk in, and there's this T-Rex, full size, full scale T-Rex that probably never really saw the light of day.
Well, I mean, it did in shots what came down and bumped things. Yeah. Like they were able to use some of it, but you're absolutely right. It was so that I was at the theater, and those makeup guys I was talking about earlier, I worked with on the Guyver movie. They were with me when in the theater we saw Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
you should have seen the look on their faces. We came out of that theater and they looked at us and they're like, "My career's over. I'm over. My career's over. It's done." It's like, and everybody had this look of panic. And I looked at him and said, "Dude, you know what it cost? This is Spielberg. This is not some any guy. This is Spielberg pushing the envelope with George Lucas and ILM, doing the ultimate of what they can do, and it's going to cost a fortune." And it did, and it's affordable now. But I'm trying to say it takes a while. But the one thing which I know everybody's talking about, and it's going to happen, is that you think that's amazing. AI is going to change visual effects in the sense of like it can, like I heard so much about it, haven't seen it, but the new Indiana Jones movie, there's a scene where Harrison Ford plays Indy, a younger version of him in the movie, and it got ILM, and they took all the footage and stuff of Harrison Ford from his 30s
and actually superimposed it.
And what they did was the machine took him, like Harrison Ford goes, it just took him, AI did, and rebuilt, just put him on top of him. Yep. So it's not digital. Here's the thing. It's not digitally created. They didn't create it digitally. It actually took footage of him and manipulated onto him. So you can't get any more real than that. That's what AI does. And so it's like, that's groundbreaking. Granted, I probably won't see the movie because it just sounds terrible, but
the trailer looks amazing. That particular scene you're talking about, you actually see it for a brief moment, and it does look amazing.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing is that when we watch these trailers. Okay, Dennis.
See you, Dennis.
See you later.
Ted, we really appreciate you taking the time, guys. I will see you next week, and again, everybody, thank you for watching. Ted, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right, Dennis. I'll see you later. So, the sad thing is that when we see these new trailers, it's like we see the best, and like you said, I'm probably not going to go see it because I just saw the best parts of it all.
And tagging on to what Dennis said before he left, like I think the best CGI is only done well when the practical effects exist in the same movie, because together the movies are amazing, but when they have too much of one and not enough of the other, you can definitely see the shortcomings in those films.
Yeah, and they rely too much on it too. It's like just get working the story guys and the scripts. Yeah, the thing is, I think like all of us, and I'll get on my soapbox for a really short bit here about the whole Indiana Jones thing, is that people like the Disney thing, it's about marketing and trying to reboot a franchise. It's like just wrap up the character. Let Indy just make a show where you wrap up Indy and let it be. But they're like, no, we're gonna do this thing like we did with Star Wars. We're gonna try to introduce these new people. And you ready for this? Nobody cares, man. You're gonna try it and nobody cares. And not saying that this actress is not worthy or anything like that. It's just it's a bad thing. It's bad timing. No matter what you do or how many spins you're gonna put on it, it's not Indiana Jones. We all love Indy. It's like, and so when Indy goes, we're done. Nobody cares about this new person that's going to take on his adventures. We don't care. And like there's that whole big thing, which I think was an epic failure, which I don't even think it's even a real thing. I think Kathleen Kennedy just said it to get people riled up, but she's like, oh, we're bringing Ray back for this whole new Star Wars thing. And,
Oh yeah.
And it's, dude, there's no script. There's no production on it. She just said it to rile people up. And I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen because nobody cares. It's like, no, nobody does. It's like, it's when they lost a lot of money with this new trilogy, and then nobody cares about the franchise. We all love the old stuff. We love Mando. We love Boba Fett. We like Ahsoka. Like, we like all the stuff from this other past stuff. But even the new stuff, we're done. And it's just like this whole desperate attempt. And yeah, it's like, I knew it was a little bit of a fanfare. And I said, what's the old saying? Proof's in the pudding. If it doesn't sell, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to sell. No, you can't get people on board with that.
Definitely. So, who is somebody that you've kind of, I guess, looked up to yourself? And have you had a chance to meet them, or is there somebody that you've met that you've, just like me, fanboyed out over because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm with this person right here?
It's so funny. I've bumped and ran into so many celebrities and been around them, but I've never idolized people. I always admire them, but I've never fangirled so much. But I did. I met Adam Savage twice now, and we really hit it off. And I was at Silicon, and I was at Silicon, and it was a convention he ran. It was last year. I think it was last year. And I just recently did a low budget sci-fi film for my friend called Space Wars. And I built control panels in a spacesuit. Oh, look, I even have it right here. Actually, it's like I made this space helmet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I made it, and I got it back, and so I went to Silicon and I gave it to Adam Savage. I thought he'll get a big kick out of this, right? So he absolutely loved it. He made a video about it, untested, about this helmet. He really liked it. So he's like, "Look, Ted, I'd love you to come to the shop." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I got invited to go to the shop, but we haven't really, because he's like myself, we're very busy. But that was one of the great moments. That was kind of cool to meet somebody who's roughly in the same age range that I am, who's done a lot of the movie industry work stuff, and it's really cool that we both have this like kind of YouTube private presence, and it'd be great to meet him. I'll tell you the biggest guy I have a huge fandom for and mad respect for, and I worked for him twice. Worked for him twice. That's James Cameron. And the first time I worked with him was on T2 3D The Ride.
Oh, that was an awesome ride.
Dude, I wish it was such an awesome ride. And they had it here in California, and they put it in Florida too. And of course, over time, they just pull the rides because they get old. But
Yeah.
it was actually, people don't realize this, that it was kind of based on a third concept he had for the movie. Like that was like his idea for the third trilogy and the Terminator franchise. So he just kind of made it as a ride. And I worked with him on that. We met him briefly on that one. And then, God, decades later, I worked with him on Titanic. And that was another great thing that when it says a James Cameron film, they're not kidding. That guy oversees every shot of that film. He never just says, oh, the reason I say it, because films I worked on Contact, the Jodie Foster sci-fi film, Robert Zemeckis, and Zemeckis has a whole bunch of people that do stuff for him. So he directs and goes, so he had a visual effects team guys, and they would go out and do the stuff and then show it to him. And he'd say yay, nay, or, and they would just make the shots for him. But it was just watching Cameron do every shot in the film, from visual, all the stuff. Everything we did was miniatures. There's some digital stuff in the film, but most stuff we did with miniatures from that film. All the rooms turning and flooding were giant miniatures being flooded with the room, and stuff breaking in half was all giant miniatures. And even the iceberg that hit and break, it was all this big giant miniature. And they're shooting at stuff, and he would watch it and say, I want this. And it was like, and he would see the shots, and if something didn't look right, he'd shoot it again. He knew what he wanted. It was just like, that guy oversaw every freaking shot of that film. So yeah. So I briefly kind of met him. I would love to sit down and talk to him.
So I guess you would be the expert. Was there room for Jack on that door? I would say there was room.
It didn't matter. He was submerged so deep, the hypothermia. It's so cold.
He was blue.
Dude,
I mean,
he
he's a
was
smart.
he was in it too long. It's like even like she got on it and she was a little wet, but he was submerged. And even if he got it's like the whole thing of like if he got on it, it'd submerge them both, and then they both would freeze. So by him being off it, he had to take the It's like people.
Yeah, but thing is she loved him. If she truly loved him so much, she would have pulled him on, and they both would have died together.
I only ask that because it's one of those questions that every dude who hates Titanic is like, yeah, but if she would have just moved over, they could have both fit. And it's like, well, neither one of them existed in the actual story. So what's the matter?
Yeah, guys. Exactly. It's a love story. It's a love story movie, dude.
Yeah.
So, Ted, I did actually get a chance to watch the movie that you made. Yeah.
Get Out.
I dug it up. I was like, I gotta watch this movie. Even again, my wife was like, you gotta find it because you've got to watch it because he's gonna be on your show. Because so I did watch it. How did that whole thing come about? I mean, how did you get the opportunity to be able to do that?
That's a good story for everybody out there watching this show. The film is called Guardian of the Realm. I know there's bootlegs and things out there. Please don't do that. There's some really bad copies of it out there. Pirate Pictures, the guys are my friends back in St. Louis. They're both the producers on it. My friend Scott Baker and Bob Clark are friends I knew since high school, and they came into some money. And Bob's like, we should make a movie. So he was with my friend Scott, and Scott wanted to make a movie. And so he turned to Scott and said, hey, well, now I got money. Let's make a movie. And Scott's like, tell you what, I know Ted wants to make a movie. He's in California and he knows people. Let's talk to him. So they called me up and said, hey, do you still want to make a movie? I'm like, what? Really? So I had this crazy idea for this cyborg movie I wanted to make. And as I started talking about it, I started realizing this is way too big. It's way too expensive. So about, this girl walking the wasteland with a mechanical arm and these 3 cyborgs that killed her father. And so I was going to, and then after a while, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. So I got to write something small. And so I laughed because Guardian started off as a small project and turned into a monster on its own. But it was a low budget film that we shot. I knew about filmmaking from working in the industry for so long as I did, but you don't really know until you're in the director's seat. And then that's when I started I literally worked on that film for 2 years. We got the script. We wrote it. Took about a year to write the script. We had a general idea what we wanted. I bashed out the script. My friend Wyatt Weed came on board. We both wrote the script. We wrote the script. I had the idea in my head, and then we had to make it into a story, a 3-story act, and all these characters. And so we started writing it. Finally, to where we got it, and then we went into post. So we went into production. So it took me a year to write. So we went into post, and then I convinced the producers. I'm like, dude, all the stuff that has to be built, I can do it. Because in the real world, you have to hire people and spend tons of money, and then it's about time and money. So you hired and said, we don't have that luxury. We can't do that. So what I'm gonna do is, can you guys give me at least 9 months? So again, everybody, I don't recommend this for anybody. Do not do this. So I stood in my loft for 9 months and just cranked stuff out. I had a couple of friends that would come in periodically and help me out. So for 9 months, I was building the costumes, building the props, building the weapons, designing the creatures. I built this character named Tao, the Gold Demon. I built him. I built the red bad guy at the end. I built him. The evil demon queen outfit. I built her outfit. So again, we're just doing all this stuff. And then when it got closer to production, I started bringing extra people in to help me. And then we went into production and we shot it in the can. Boom. We did it over 30 days. The movie shot in 30 days. Right? Crazy. That's fast.
Yeah, that's a quick shoot.
And everybody in low budget world says, that's a lot of time, Ted. I said, yeah, if you're shooting Star Wars, it's like are shooting that's why they shoot normal movies. Usually productions like Clint Eastwood shoots everything in 30 days. I said, it's long for low budget, but it's short for big budgets. And I treated my film like a big budget film. We shot until we got what we needed. And then we basically went into post. So then it was editing and effects. And we realized we're out of money. So then I had to get a job. So that's how I found the prop shop that I was at for 15 years. I found the job and started making money, and then we went back into film. And so it took us about a year to edit the movie. So we're 2 years in. We get it all done. We do a screening. People love it, and we get it. We're ready. My buddy, why now? We're ready. Yeah, let's go do the film festival. It's gonna be great. So as soon as we sold the film within 4 months. So by the time it was done, Think Films bought it, and they just dumped it. You know, like most distributors, they just took it, bought it, didn't advertise it, just threw it out there. So it went to Netflix, Hollywood Video, Blockbuster, was everywhere on the shelves, and it kind of went, had this little peak, and it disappeared. So my producers they got the film back, and they're going to we already did a recut on it. We cleaned it all up, and we redid all the visual effects. My friend Wyatt he did amazing stuff. So our plan is to hopefully someday re-release this. So all you guys out there want to see this, stay in touch with me on social media, or go to my Twitter account. You can go to Instagram, EvilTed_channel. I'm also on Facebook, Evil Ted, and you can also go find me on TikTok, and also on my website, eviltedsmith.com. And I will keep you guys posted, because I know eventually we want to re-release it. But what did you think of it? What honestly, what did you think?
You know what? It was really cool to see that you were able to, like, that you did it, that you actually went out there and made your own film, regardless if it was low budget. David always gives me crap because I watch I don't care whether it's low budget, big budget, I watch it all.
I do the same thing. I do.
And honestly, every movie has something in it that it's a little chunk of gold in it that I like. And yeah, the acting wasn't the greatest, but I thought it was really, like, the makeup that was done on just the first demon, you know, the girl with the it almost reminded me of Lost Boys, the way her face.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, I'll be honest, that's all the Buffy brow, I call it. I stole that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I sat there and I watched it, and it was fun. It was a fun movie to watch. I wish I had more people with me, because it's, you know, obviously a movie like that is also fun to be talking about as you're watching it. And so it was really cool. And I did notice, and I wanted to ask, was the control console what was her name? The young girl that liked
Lisa.
Yeah. Was that panel from Star Trek Next Generation?
No, it was inspired by it.
Oh, okay.
Because I love the look, and I wanted that look. So my friend Matt Munson made that for me. He did I said, think next gen. I want like next gen, but wait, yeah. So yeah, and we did, and so I did it. We pumped light underneath it. Did the same thing they did Next Generation, because I wanted touch keypad stuff. I wanted everything high tech. So,
and I thought it was really cool. That was the one thing, it stood out to me. I was like, man, that kind of looks like Next Generation, but it was cool.
Yeah, I built that damn thing. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. So yeah, I mean, it was awesome to be able to watch the movie, and luckily, I just found it. I was like, where can I find this to watch this?
Where did you find it? Where did you find it?
It's on YouTube.
Of course it is.
It wasn't the greatest quality.
That's the thing, is because it's so good when the quality is great on it. It's I tell these people want to watch it, because I just recently we just recut it, we remastered it. It's like a completely different movie. It looks so great. So a lot of the effects and stuff we do suffer because you can't see them. So on the burn thing, yeah, it's terrible. So,
and that was like one of the things that when they burn the first demon, and then as they were burning, it looked kind of bad. But I also knew that it was because it was a YouTube, you know, somebody just kind of put it up on YouTube, and it was not full digital and everything. So I'd love to see, you know, another version of it. And because
are you local? You're on here, right?
Oh yeah, I'm over in Montclair. I'm not even that far from you.
All right. Well, someday what we'll do, we'll sit down. I'll show you the new cut.
Definitely would love that.
All right.
We have to check that out. I'm gonna drive down.
Dude, you're not gonna go check it out. Don't lie.
I'll drive down.
So, you know what, Ted? We've kept you on for a while, and I definitely want to keep talking. I'd want to keep going on, but I don't want to take too much more of your time. We definitely would love to have you back on the show again, if you'd be up for that.
We'll definitely see what's coming on. Let you guys know what's going on. If you kids are out there watching, you want to know where to find me, you can definitely go to my website, eviltedsmith.com. I also have a YouTube channel called the Evil Ted Channel, and my main mission is to take the intimidation out of building. I want to get kids. I want to get. That was the whole thing. Is I worked in the industry for so long. I learned so much stuff that I want. Because when I did stuff in the beginning, it was all trial and error, and you screw things up and you burn through stuff. So I want to take that struggle that you guys have and take it away from watching my videos. You guys watch my tutorials. I'll teach you all the stuff that I learned on how to build and craft and stuff and do things with foam. You can make anything on such a relatively budget. Just making movie quality props on just EVA foam. There's really great ways and techniques, and I have all these videos that cover all the stuff on it. So please, guys, if you want to be a maker and dabble and build your own stuff, I'm your gateway drug. So
definitely, you guys check him out. Ted, like I said, the first video I watched of you, which was the helmet.
Yeah. So
I literally made that helmet right after. I watched it and I was like, crap, I gotta rewind. Okay, what do you do? Okay. I step by step, I made that helmet, and that was my gateway into this whole thing. And then I went out, bought the Dremel, I had the whole gamut of tools. David will attest that when I was out overseas, my little, we call it our jerk shacks, which it's our little covered area that had our bed and everything, because it was a big old room and we had 4 guys. But I had my little table up against one of the walls. I had all my foam right there. I mean, I just spent hours inside when I wasn't having to go do our wonderful work that we did out there.
Right.
And but it was because of you. And I mean, I would love to pick your brain and do more. I'll send you some pictures.
I tell everybody on social media, guys, if you guys have any questions about what I want to do, definitely reach out to me. I answer all my, I'm one of those crazy guys who answers. If you DM me on Instagram or message me on YouTube or leave comments, I always engage, I always write to people. And so please, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Guys, it's been a blast. We geeking out sometime we can do this sometime. We don't have to record it. We can actually just hang out sometime. We'll catch up.
Yeah, no.
We'll do this. All right, guys?
For sure. So Ted, if you just sit tight just for a few minutes.
Yep.
And because I know you had some other questions about more of this stuff. So sit tight. We're going to just end our show and then we'll be right back with you.
All right, guys.
Hold on. Let's take him out.
Always end with a hold on. We're almost there.
All right, Ted, we'll be right back with you in a few minutes.
You guys take care, guys.
Guys, that was awesome.
Yep.
Did I fanboy out too much?
Nah, man, you're good.
All right, I'm good.
Yeah, that was great. As always, you know where to find us, the Geek Saga, Instagram, Twitch. Email address is thegeeksaga20@gmail.com. Drop us a line, give us some updates on what we can keep, what we can change, maybe some ideas on where to go with the next show. But as always, guys, this is me and Eugene with the Geek Saga signing out.
And guys, really quick, don't forget, check us out on Comic-Con-Radio. We've got all our episodes there. We are also, I don't think I should say any more than that. Other than that, we're on Comic-Con-Radio. Check them out. Remember, our buddies up north are on there also, which is Distance Nerding. You can check them out. We always want to give them a shout out because they always give us a shout out. So there we go. All right, guys. So keep going through this wonderful geekdom and stay tuned for next week. Come back to this same geek channel, same geek time. All right, guys. You guys have a good night.